this. We'll give a couple of minutes, everyone, for people to transition from one meeting to another. And we'll get started. Connie, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Churchill's December webinar. We'll just give it a couple more minutes as people transition meeting to meeting. We'll get started. Definitely on this webinar, it's worth having something to take notes, maybe a pen and paper, because this is very individualized in terms of understanding your own unique blind spots and walking away with solutions. All right. Connie, can you see the pop-up windows on your screen? The pop-up windows that I have open?
I see your slides, and that's it.
Okay, great. So if I have chat open, it doesn't get in your way. That's good to know.
No.
All righty. Can't believe it's December already. One more minute, we'll get started. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to How to Overcome Your Communication Blind Spots. This is the third in a series of communication-based webinars that we've been doing. And we've done a series just because communication is such a big deal. When we think of why clients come to Churchill, many of the times there's communication overtly in their need. We need to communicate better in some form, or it's an underlying issue that's going on within an organization. So there's many different challenges when it comes to communication and many different solutions. And we've already focused on how to be clear, concise, and compelling in your communication. We've also had a webinar that was about conversational intelligence, understanding the neuroscience of what happens in our brain and the brain of the people we're talking to in order to have conversations that build trust and collaboration. And today we're going to focus on overcoming blind spots. So let's move forward. What we're going to do today is three key things. We're going to revisit communication problems again to really ground us on why we're here and why this is so important to not only be at this webinar, but to walk away with some solutions and insight. Then we're going to get into the 5 specific blind spots, and I'm going to build your awareness of what they are, why they happen, and again, solutions. Very practical. I like to make sure that we're getting value for our time here. And then finally, we'll wrap up with how Churchill can help you if you need more help, or your organization or your leaders need more help in this space. So just two slides on the problem just to reground us. We know from research that 9 out of 10 conversations miss the mark. So just think for a moment, what % of your average week are you in some type of conversation? Webinar, one-on-one, phone call, meeting, email, they're all conversations, and most people say 70 to 80% of their time are in conversations. So basically business performance and our ability to learn happens through conversations. And 9 out of 10 of them aren't as effective as they could be. So that alone is a big enough reason for all of us to continue to look for ways to communicate better. We also know from research that the difference between high and not so high performing teams comes due to the quality of their conversations. So not only does communication improve for us as an individual, it really elevates team performance. And we all probably know this, that about 60% of employees, while they join a great company, leave due to a boss that isn't as effective. And again, a lot of those issues come down to how the employee and manager communicate with each other. And it's why so many organizations want to invest in manager effectiveness. So a couple more. This slide speaks more to what it costs organizations, and it's a big cost. Whether you're a huge organization, a survey was done with 400 companies. Each of the companies were huge. They cited a loss of at least 62 million a year due to inadequate communication just between employees. Another survey looked across 8 countries and 8 verticals, all different levels of an organization, and showed a loss of nearly 20 hours of productivity lost per week per employee. And that was more small to medium-sized companies. Smaller companies as well, even if you have less than 100 people, rate hundreds of thousands per year can get lost due to poor communication. So there is a big reason we are here. Yeah, it looks like that question was answered. Thank you, Connie. So that's why we're here. So let's start off with a poll. This is a really super simple poll. We're getting ready for the holidays, many of us, and I thought let's just be real easy on the crowd today. I'm going to show you 3, or Connie's going to help us and show 3. No, I'll take that back. I'm going to show 3 communication quotes in a moment. They're numbered 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to ask you to jot down the number and pop it in the poll, which of them resonates the most. And then we'll move to the chat and just share a little of why that quote resonated, just to get a feel of some of the things that are going through your mind. So here are, Connie, do you have the quotes in the poll, or do I need to show them on slides?
You need to show them on the slides, please.
All right. So quote number 1 is, the single biggest problem in communication is our illusion that it's taken place. All right. Second is, everyone communicates, but few of us actually connect. Quote number 3, most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. All right. I'll show those again briefly, and then you can choose the one that resonates most. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. Number 2. And number 3. Connie, please launch the poll. Let people vote. All right. What I can see from the poll is number 3 was the most popular, in that we listen to understand. We listen to, let me move the poll out so I can read it properly. We don't listen to understand, we listen to respond. And that often is where we can't wait to respond. We jump in, we interrupt. And so this quote actually does resonate with a few of the blind spots, in that we're listening to get our point across, a bit more I-centric, than we are truly putting ourselves in the shoes of the other person. So we can close that poll, please, Connie. And let's go to chat just for a minute and ask people why the quote, there's no right or wrong quote, they're all relevant, why the quote you chose resonated with you. Just pop a few words into the chat, please, and we'll see what the audience has to say. Why did that particular quote resonate with you? Yes, thank you, Elaine, because we assume everyone has the same perspective as us, right? And we do that every day. I think I did it this morning and then caught myself. Great one. People are waiting to speak instead of listening. Yeah, we can't wait to get our elbows in and say what we think is important. That's that I-centric approach that gets in our way. And often it's for good intent, right? We've got something we want to share that might help the other person. We've got something that we're very passionate about. We're curious about something you've said and I want to ask a question. But yeah, that gets in our way. I see myself and others doing this constantly. When someone's talking, we're already thinking about how to answer, yet we've stopped. We've turned off the listening. Yes, absolutely. The good thing is you're recognizing this and you're already on your way to a consciousness and awareness of what's going on in your head. And awareness is the first step of positive change. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Yes, totally been there myself. Thank you. All right, so let's move forward. Thank you for your interaction there. Before we get into the meat of the webinar, I'm just going to introduce Churchill so that you all know who we are and where we're coming from, if you don't already know us. So we're a global organization. We were founded to really untap the untapped talent in the world, in the corporate world, in government agencies, so that we can harness it for greater engagement, growth, and performance by improving your soft skills, communication being a soft skill or a power skill, some people call them, but also focusing on your natural strengths and helping you build awareness and grow those. We do it all the way across the world. Some of the regions are shown here, and we tend to have long-term relationships with global corporate clients that are US-based with a global footprint, as well as government partnerships. We do three key areas. We work usually at an HR level for your whole organization and organizational development. We work with leadership teams and managers for manager effectiveness and leadership development. And then we work with intact, functional, cross-functional teams to help the team performance go up. And really, we're a team of over 200 executive coaches, facilitators, and trainers. I'm one of them, although my role now is really running the company, who are experts in our field with different specialties. Here are just some of our clients to give you a feel of the size of our clients and their diversity. A lot of tech companies, a lot of finance companies, healthcare companies, and others. It gives you a sense of the scale of Churchill. My background is over 20 years in pharmaceuticals as a leader, sales leader, operations marketing leader, helping others grow, developing leaders and teams. I have a lot of experience with clients. My role now predominantly is working with our coaches across organizations. So the reason I know a lot about communication is my corporate background and my real world experience, which continues, and that was across Europe and the US. I'm also a trained in brief, which helps us be concise in our communication and conversational intelligence. And I get to observe client issues and solutions across the globe with all of our clients and coaches. So I'm always keen to share that experience to help you and also help you understand when you do need extra support, Churchill is here for you. We also have Connie, Dr. Connie Evans. She's our marketing director here at Churchill. She's based in Texas. She's also a certified analytics and data expert, so she's always keen on the data and the facts and the concrete information behind anything that we discuss. So Connie, would you like to say hello to the group?
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And Jane, I'm very excited to hear what you have to share with us. I know I have blind spots and very excited to learn how to approach and overcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. All right. If you have any questions at any point, you don't have to wait. You can either come off mute and interrupt me, fine with that, or you can go to the chat box and Connie's going to keep a close eye on that as well. All right, so we've talked about some of the problems. Let's get into the actual blind spots, and I want to give you some context first. We've all got them. You're not unusual that you find you have a blind spot when it comes to communication, or multiple. We all have them, me included. All human beings have them. And in some ways, it's sort of our natural way of managing all of the information that comes at us more than ever it has done today. It's some way, it might be a bit of our protective effect to stop us going crazy from the overload. But we need to know about them and how they work, and how our I-centric, as in it's about me, impulses lead to us to protect ourselves or to help us shut down, which causes us to be more ignorant in our conversations, which means the impact we have can be we stop listening deeply to others. We think we know what they mean, or we think others know what we mean when we're talking to them, but they don't. There's a disconnect. And we lose our ability, because it's all about me, to put ourselves in your footstep and your shoes to understand what's really going on in our situation. We've all got them. That's okay. But we need to know about them and figure them out, how to reduce the impact. All right. So here are the 5, and I'll go into them in a little more detail. So to get the most from this webinar, this is what I would suggest as we go through the next sort of 20, 30 minutes. Identify which of the blind spots or which of the couple of the blind spots resonates with you, you're at risk of doing. For each of those, take away a couple of tips that will help you stay aware when you go back out into your work world or your home life, that will help you stay aware so you can start practicing reducing your impact. For each of these 5 blind spots, we'll now explore the definition, what it means, what it feels like when you're in it, like when you're at risk of being in that blind spot, how you can negatively impact those around you, and then we'll talk about some solutions. All right, are we ready? Are you ready, Connie?
I sure am.
All right. Let's make this as interactive as possible. I'll share my insight, or say Churchill's insight, what we've learned around the globe from all of our experience. But please just know we don't have all the answers. We all look at things differently, so we all see different perspectives, and feel free to share thoughts, tips in the chat box or to shout out. So this first one is, we make the assumption that everyone thinks like I think. We look at the same situation, maybe a problem at work that the team meeting is focused on, and I see it one way, and I assume that everyone else in the room sees the same problem the same way and feels the same way about it. And I tend to go forward with that thinking. But in reality, it's just not true. We know from our StrengthsFinder work, and most of our programs, we weave in StrengthsFinder to help people harness their natural talent, and we know that strengths really are a reflection of how we see the world, how we approach problems, how we use our natural go-to way to build relationships and solve things. And we know that the chance of having the same top 5 strengths as someone else in the world is 1 in 33 million. So in reality, 33 million people should be in the room for me to find what thinks and feels and sees what I see. And of course, that's never going to happen. So what does this look like? We get attached to our point of view. This is how I see it. This is how we need to feel about it. This is what we need to do. And we wonder why other people don't agree with us or don't act the same way. Other people say things and we're like, what is he thinking? What is she thinking? And it's because they look through a different lens. And so we miss how differently they see the world. And what tends to happen is we push harder. You need to see it this way. This is what we need to do. But it's a very singular approach to the situation. And it doesn't help us win. It doesn't help us move together forward. In fact, our bodies pick up when other people don't agree with us, and we push harder. We'll repeat ourselves. We'll say things louder. We'll come at it from a different angle, trying to persuade them. And now we're in a I win, you lose, I've got to win situation. And the neurochemicals going around our body is, if we're proven right, if someone agrees with us, it builds dopamine, and that makes us feel good, so we want more of it. So I've got you on board, now I want you on board, I want to convince you, you and you. But all I'm doing is pushing my view of the world. Can you see how this happens? We feel when we're in it, we're on a roll. What does it feel like to other people, do you think? Any thoughts? Maybe you've been in a meeting where someone is like this. We have a chat. You're lost, right, Elaine? And when you feel lost, what tends to happen? You feel unheard, disengaged. We tend to get exhausted, feel overwhelmed, and so we check out. They overtake the meeting and others cut off. So all of that other great thinking and ideas in the room gets lost. And it happens time and time again. Thank you, Kimberly and Elaine, for your interaction there. So how do we solve it? How do we get ourselves out of this? Yes, Andy, others shut up. We lose the value of all those people in the room that are in our organization and we've invited to the meeting. So the first thing we have to recognize is how that self-talk, when I say reframing, is if you're in this blind spot, you're probably thinking, I'm right, they're wrong, I can win them over, right? So instead of that, I need to win, when you start to notice, I've got the answers, I need to win, I need to prove I'm right. When you start to notice you think that way, that's the hardest thing is have your third eye open. In India, where they talk about third eye, it means you're really watching yourself in the moment. You can see yourself in the moment. You're very self-aware. And when you start thinking this, that's when you've got to switch to a different self-talk. How can we all win? How can I understand someone else's perspective? That's how we reframe it in our head. And in doing that, we've got to figure out, well, how do I understand other people's perspective? And that's where the solutions come in. And what we should do is stay curious. Ask powerful questions. You might say, well, that's how I see it. Connie, how do you see it? Elaine, what's going through your mind? Kimberly, what do you think of this situation? What are your ideas? So you bring others into the conversation and recognize it's time for you to slow down, stay quiet, and make sure everyone's ideas get on the table. What if you're in a room and someone else is in this blind spot and thinks they have all the answers? How might you help then instead of just shutting down? What might you do? Any thoughts? I'll give you a couple of tips. One thing you might do to say, I might say, oh, they're coming in. All right. So ask if we could provide feedback. Absolutely. When you ask permission to say something, people usually give you a bit of space to do it. Elaine, I think that's relevant and we should consider if there are other views. Absolutely. Give relevance and recognize what that person has said and open it up to the audience. Even if you don't have anything else to say, you might say something like, you know, I'm not sure how I think about this situation, but I'd love to hear from everyone in the room. Maybe we could whiteboard some of the different perspectives so that we can see everyone's thinking all in one place. There are very practical things you can do to reduce it if someone else has this blind spot, and be very self-aware in the moment if you're at risk of this one, and reframe how you're thinking and ask powerful questions and start listening to give other people a voice. Okay, any questions on this one? I'm just going to share a quick case study on this particular blind spot. If you have questions, pop them in chat and I'll come back to them after I've shared this case study. So this is Perry. I call him Persuasive Perry. This is a real story, but we've changed some of the specifics to keep it confidential. He did well in his career and he became VP of IT of a very large organization. Now, up until now, Perry had been successful, but this promotion was a big one. He went from having a degree of responsibility in the organization to global responsibility and a lot more people. We knew from his strengths results that he was highly responsible, which meant responsibility for him was a big deal. He always felt very responsible and wanted to deliver. So what that meant was his style was he tended to think he needed to have all the answers. He would prepared diligently for his team meetings and for customer presentations. What happened though was he tended to feel he needed to have all the answers. He felt he was responsible to have all the solutions, which led to he assumed everyone thought the way he did, that first blind spot, which led to him doing most of the talking in those interactions, one-on-ones and meetings, which led to, some of you said, people got disheartened and started to shut down. They had ideas and tried to come in, but he'd just keep going. He thought he had the answers, therefore theirs weren't relevant. He started to lose people, not just from disengagement, but they left his organization. Plus, his results started to flatten out and his engagement scores started to decline. Internally, he began to lose confidence and imposter syndrome started to creep in. But he was stuck. He didn't know what to do. No one was courageous enough to give him feedback, so he had to figure it out himself. So he went to HR, asked for some advice, and they recommended Churchill as an executive coach. And we worked with him. And here are a couple of things he discovered. Through working through his strengths results, he recognized his responsibility was on overdrive and he needed to pull back. Being responsible for the final result was one thing, but being responsible to have all the answers was just not necessary. He also had high learner, which meant he was hungry to learn. And while he was constantly learning on his own to share solutions, he recognized the best way to learn was to listen to others. And he started to practice that time and time again until he became a lot more natural of having a better ratio of talking to listening. He learned more how the brain science works with the neuroscience, and he worked with a conversational intelligence coach at Churchill to help him get those aha moments. He was a VP of IT. He wanted the technical, he wanted the concrete reasoning for all this. And the neuroscience really helped him do that. Major aha moments. His meetings got better. His conversational intelligence improved. His retention on his team got better, as did his engagement scores and his team results. He ultimately became aware of a big conversational blind spot and put specific solutions in place. Any thoughts or questions on blind spot number 1 before we move on? All right, let's get to number 2. Our feelings change our reality. When we walk into a room, there's a reality. There's a reality of the team, there's a reality of the situation, there's a reality of the agenda or the problem we're going to be discussing. But our feelings might get triggered by who's in the room or how we feel about the problem on the table. And that skews reality for us. We fail to realize, if we're in this blind spot, that fear of someone or something, trust or distrust of someone or something changes how we actually see what's real, and therefore how we have a conversation about it. When we're in a state of fear, what happens in the brain is we release the neuroscience called cortisol, which closes down the front part of our brain, which is known as the executive brain, which helps us to think clearly, think strategically, and make better decisions. With that closing down, we feel more threatened and we go into a place of fear and we protect ourselves. And all of this is going on, we don't even realize it. It's a blind spot. So we can feel defensive and we can feel defensive to other people. So let's think of a simple situation here. We're thinking about restructuring our team and our organization to help us be more productive. Well, oh my gosh, my fear just went up because I went through restructuring before and it didn't work very well for me. I lost some responsibility and I thought I was going to lose my job, but I didn't, but it wasn't good. So straight away, my fear barriers are up, and whatever the conversation gets into, I start to come across as defensive. Well, I'm not sure we should do that. Or, yeah, there's a risk if we do that. Oh, that's not necessary. To others, I feel like I just keep putting up brick walls. The reality is we're trying to work together to put a plan in place for us all to succeed better, but my fears, my feelings are getting in my way and I don't even realize it. So others start to see us as the naysayer. Oh, watch Jane. She'll, whatever we come up with, she'll poo-poo it. Or Jane will go quiet because we don't know why, but she does. And that's because I might be in a blind spot of where my feelings change my reality. It could go the other way. I feel really enthusiastic about something and my reality gets changed because I overemphasize the opportunity or something like that. It can still be a blind spot. So often Churchill works with clients here on recognizing those feelings by improving emotional intelligence, by helping them with mindfulness to realize what's going on in the moment for them and to take a breath and recognize it so they can adjust. A way to reframe this is, again, have that third eye open, that third eye, recognizing where you are and what you're feeling in the moment and what that feeling is telling you. It might tell you, we can't do this, this isn't safe. So instead, you might reframe it to say, what do I need to learn about this situation to feel safe? What don't I know that I need to know to understand the reality of this perceived risk? Think about your self-talk and how you can reframe it to work for you and for others. All right, thoughts, reactions to this blind spot. Let's hear from you. Has anyone experienced it? Do you see it in others? Connie, have you seen this around you or maybe in yourself? I haven't seen it in you. Don't don't think that.
No, I don't feel like I go to this place, but I have definitely seen others where that fight or flight kind of sets in, and they're kind of freaking out on the inside about something that may or may not even actually be realistic. It's just how they're perceiving that feeling.
Right. And so that's such a good point because again, this is human chemistry, right? These blind spots happen in some ways to protect ourselves, but have negative consequences. So a person that's in this space may not be doing it to be awkward or difficult. They're doing it because they've been through something that's causing them to feel this way. So another solution is to observe the room and maybe recognize someone's in that fear, fight or flight place and say, Connie, I noticed your face change as we're talking about this. I'm not sure what it meant. What's going through your mind right now? What do you see as opportunities or challenges in this space? What's been your experience? Again, be curious and ask powerful questions. Great chats coming here, Kimberly. See this a lot when companies going through change. Absolutely. These are some of the blind spots we use in our change management programs or emotional intelligence in our change management programs because we all react to change differently. Absolutely, Kimberly. People just shut down and don't want to go through change because the fear is that great. And often the fear is a future event that isn't real for us, but we're just scared it is. So there are ways to work with that. Try and think about it, about if you would receive the message the same way someone else. Yes. Sometimes I say things and then I watch the room and recognize I've triggered feelings by what I've said, not purposefully, although sometimes intentionally. So as I say something, I watch the body language, I watch the facial expressions to try and pick up on what questions I need to ask to help people put those feelings on the table. I've learned more to be visually observant of people's reaction. It's why I use Zoom a lot, even for most of my one-on-ones, so I can see people's feelings in their face, or at least maybe get a feel of something's going on for them so I can explore and help them feel heard. All right, let's move on to number 3. Connie, if I miss a chat, then jump in and bring my awareness to it, please. This is also about fear, but instead of it changing my reality, this blind spot is fear is stopping me to get into the other person's shoes. It's putting me back into I, okay? The brain has mirror neurons, like sensors in our brain that they're naturally there, and they give us a view into what other people feel, think, and what their intent is. When we're in a place where we're willing and actively listening deeply, we're turning off judgment, we're turning off thinking, and allowing ourselves to really connect to that other person and try and really get in their shoes without judging them. We turn these neurons on and can increase our empathy of really getting into that person's shoes. But if we start to listen and start to think, yeah, that's not a good idea, oh my goodness, what is she thinking? And interrupt them, we turn off these neurons. They become less sensitive. And we stay in our shoes and our opinion of the situation instead of putting both situations, both perspectives on the table. Think about it. If you're in a conversation with someone, it's probably because you can't do it alone. You need that other person. You either need their approval, their input, them to do work with you, to be engaged, to influence others. There's a reason they're there, and that's why we need both perspectives, both opinions, both lots of ideas on the table. We need to put ourselves in the other person's shoes to help get it out on the table. Yet when this blind spot is in place and fear is kicked in, our power to connect and empathize goes away. Okay, so what might that feel to the person on the receiving end? I have to work hard at empathy. I do it through conversation. I can't do it through natural picking up on feelings. I have to look, I have to observe voices, tone, body language, words. Like some people can naturally pick up on empathy. If you have high empathy with StrengthsFinder, chances are you can pick up on people's feelings even if you don't want to. I don't have that, so I have to use communication to do it. And if I'm fearful and can't empathize, it can feel to the other person that I just don't give a damn about them. I don't care. Let's see what else you've said. And heard. I can't trust. Yeah, that you get what I'm saying. Trust goes down. We disconnect. I can feel dismissed. I can feel disrespected. Yes. And good collaboration and good working relationships need connection and high trust. We learned that last month through our conversational intelligence webinar. So there's high risk with all of these blind spots. They're a bit different, but there's high risk. So to connect with others, actively listen, stay curious, turn off judgment. If you notice that you're shutting down through fear, ask yourself, how can I connect with this person right now? What can I ask to understand their perspective? Create a go-to question you can always use so you're never stuck. You might ask, what's going through your mind right now? You might share your fear. I'm a bit worried that this might cause XYZ. What's going through your mind? That often gets me out of a fear place and into their space. Again, this is where we work with leaders or managers, that organizations that want more manager effectiveness, to improve emotional intelligence, to help people recognize these emotions and work with them and be more intelligent about them and learn the skills of things like active listening, empathy, and asking powerful questions. All right, 2 more left. These are quite different. These are less about feelings. This one is, I remember, therefore I know. The assumption here is what we remember what others say when we actually remember what we think others have said. So let me just clarify that a little. So we're hearing someone, and we actually, as we hear someone, we're translating it into what we think we're hearing. So what happens is about every 10 to 15 to 20 seconds, we subconsciously drop out of the conversation to process what's being said. Someone might be talking about their home life and their children, and straight away I stop, and before I know it, I'm thinking about my son and what's going on with him. So I'm missing parts of the conversation. We remember then what we think we've heard the other person say, because that internal making sense of things is stronger and has a stronger chemical signal for us than what the other person is saying to us. And so our internal listening system is stronger than what the other person is saying. So we leave that conversation with the other person thinking I've heard exactly what they've said and exactly what they mean. And I think I've heard exactly what they've said and exactly what they mean, but we're actually on two different paths. We're not aligned. Can you imagine the challenges this causes at work? Hey, I thought you were going to do that after that last meeting. And I might say, did you? Did I? Did I say that? Yeah, I thought that based on our conversation, you were going to take that. Oh, no. Because what I had was something different. You were exploring an idea. I didn't actually know that I had something I needed to do. And this is where this blind spot gets in the way. We're not on the same page. Maybe many of you have experienced that. It tends to cause accountability issues. It tends to cause confusion. It causes lack of alignment, all of which are critical in your relationship with your boss or your employees and on a team, even with customers. Let's look at this a little more. We walk away feeling, I'm confident. Connie's got it. Connie heard what I said. Connie's walking away confident. Yeah, I've got what Jane needs. Jane and I are on the same page. But if we recognize we're in the blind spot, we might feel the other person isn't listening to me. We might walk away with assumptions that we're on the same page. So a tip here to reframe is, if you're in a conversation or a meeting, test your assumptions. I love this one and I use it all the time. What assumption am I making here that I need to test? So what I may say is, I've heard what you say. I think what you mean is that correct, or am I making an assumption? Or I may say something like, am I hearing you say you need me to do X, Y, and Z? Or I might say, if we do this, what does good look like? If I leave this meeting and do what I think you're asking me to do, what does it look like? What do you see me do? Anything that tests your assumption of what the other person means and is expecting from you. It is incredibly powerful to test assumptions because it allows you to double click and go deeper with the other person or in a meeting and make sure you're all aligned and in agreement before you leave. Very powerful. All right, what do you think about this one? Any tips for the audience? Any thoughts? The peer learning in these webinars is as important as anything I can share. All right, let's see what's going on here. Andy, frustrating, impacts trust, absolutely. If we think each other's committed to do something and it doesn't do it, that really puts a hammer on the trust. Yes, it does. We want to prevent that. It happens all the time. As a team coach, and we have a whole team of coaches, we observe teams in action, and all of these blind spots are happening all of the time. And we as a coach, our job is to observe and share those observations. And I can tell you, we see all of these blind spots happening in one meeting. And that's the value of having a team coach. All right, let's see what Kimberly has to say here. Perception is everything. Yes, it is. Perception is individualized. It's my perception. There's 10 people in the room. There are 10 different perceptions. And we need to recognize this is a blind spot and put those perceptions on the table, see where we're aligned, see where we're not aligned, and get to that place of being on the same page. All right, what's resonating for you here, Connie?
So far, number 4, for sure.
Yeah. Do you know where this resonates more for me? At home. Yeah. Yeah, in big conversations at work where we're a lot more detail, I'm more likely to test assumptions. Although, Connie, do not hesitate ever to call me out when I don't. At home, when you're just in those smaller conversations around, are you going to do this? Can you take care of that? In conversations with my husband, for example, we both do it. We miss things because they're quick conversations and we rush and we know each other so well. But boy, this happens all the time, wrong assumptions. Yeah. So look for these at home and at work. All right, last one. Let's just check time here. All right. I'm listening so I know what you mean. All right, so a little similar, but a bit different. Meaning actually resides with the listener, not the speaker. You say something to me like, let me think here. Bringing in a team coach to improve our team in 2020 is a really good idea. That might be what the speaker says. I might listen to that and think, oh, you think our team is broken. Two different perspectives. Two totally different perspectives. The first person might have seen something and seen the value of team coaching and see where a good team can go from good to great. The other person heard we're broken. And we pull from a vault of memory in our head. This is how this happens. We have the limbic brain where we have memories, and that person that heard we're broken may have experienced that in the past from a more dysfunctional boss or team member. And they may also have memories which are in our neocortex of how to fix this, what to do and how to do it. And so although we hear words, we go back to that brain storage and let that guide us. That's why when I say one thing, you might hear another and misinterpret it. And so again, this can cause a lack of alignment. So quite similar to number 4, but different. Number 4 is more due to us not listening and making assumptions and judgment. This is relying on our memory that this is the way it happened in the past, therefore this is the way it's going to work out in the future. And every situation is different. This is when we become more about me and what I think needs to happen and less about where you are. We're on a different page. I become more absorbed in my thoughts and I might nod, which might make you think I'm listening and agreeing with you, but in reality, I'm thinking through what happened to me before, and I'm thinking, yeah, you must be crazy. Never going to do that, right? That nodding happens all the time, particularly in some cultures more than others. So we want to take time to validate and make sure that we're going beyond those memories that are our memories, our experiences. And to do that, we want to stay curious. And maybe in a room say, well, maybe Amy said that, I heard this, and I go to David. So David, what do you think about what Amy said? What's going through your mind? And we're getting the vault of everyone's thinking on the table instead of me getting lost in mine. So though I'm listening and I think I know what you mean, I've got to expand beyond just my thinking. Way to do that is stay curious. Don't jump to judgment of what you think and what you need to do is the right way. Stay curious to get other ideas on the table. Again, we teach this through active listening and improving conversational intelligence and helping leaders know how to coach, which includes active listening, staying present, and asking powerful questions. There are the 5, folks. Let me pause. What questions are coming up for you? What thoughts would help the group? Was this helpful? Any thoughts you want to share, or how it was helpful for you as people type?
Yeah, I think for me, 4 and 5 are really close. I think 5 is that kind of your brain just sort of inserts what it wants to hear but based on previous experience, versus with number 4 that is just your two ships in the night kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what tip are you walking away with that will help you, do you think?
Oh, definitely asking questions and checking in. You like to say double click, make sure that what I'm hearing is what you're saying, and making sure what I'm saying is what you're hearing so that
Yeah.
we walk away on the same page.
Yeah, and that will continue to help what I think is a great relationship as we work together at Churchill, and those tips can help everyone. Thank you, Connie. Let me respond to what I'm hearing here on the chat. Nice way to break down these concepts. Yeah, awareness is so key. All change starts with awareness. So awareness of these 5 is key. We're able to bucket them a little to give you clarity. And I have to say, this framework, and you saw the credit on those slides, this framework comes from my training from the We Institute and the great work by Judith Glacier on conversational intelligence. The insight and the solutions comes from Churchill experience, but the framework of the 5 comes from her work and what she taught me. Do we have hints that keep us focused on these to change behavior? Yeah, Kimberly, that was the point of this webinar. Is the hint is know what blind spot you're at risk at. Know the 5 so you can observe it in others to help others, and take the tips we've discussed and start practicing them now. And I'll summarize that in a moment. Another area where where it's not really a case study, but a common area where these blind spots getting our way is in giving and receiving feedback. And we get asked a lot by organizations that our managers need help. We haven't taken them through any formal training, or not enough or regular training. And one way we want them to get better is to take feedback and give feedback in a way that it's valuable, our people grow, and we execute better our strategy. And so can you imagine how all of these blind spots get in the way of giving and receiving feedback, right? Very often these blind spots are protect us, and feedback needs us to be a bit vulnerable. So if we're aware of these blind spots, and can overcome them, it really helps us give and receive feedback. And so it can be a big part of a manager effectiveness program, or with an executive that needs help with this. Okay, so let's wrap up here. This is a book I recommend. I've already mentioned it, Conversational Intelligence. We have over almost 30 certified coaches around the world and trainers. If you need help, reach out to Churchill. It's learnable and helps us make this transition from I to we, to reduce fear, improve collaboration and trust. We talked a lot about that last month. And so again, what we talked about today with blind spots is connected to the neuroscience of what happens in our brain, and helping us improve our conversational intelligence by being aware of what's happening, the blind spot I'm in, knowing what's going on in the brain and why, changing my self-talk, and applying some of these tips we've talked about. Okay, summary of implementation. Be aware of the blind spot you're in and the outcome you want. Be aware and observe blind spots around you so that you can help others by inviting them into the conversation, sharing what they think, listening to them. Prepare before you get into the conversations. No, I'm at risk of blind spot number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Notice when it starts to happen, you're going into that space of, I know what she's talking about, I've got it, or that's not a good idea, I've been there before. Notice that self-talk and reframe it like we discussed. Stay curious by asking powerful questions and really active listening. We can teach you how to do that at Churchill if you don't know or need more help. Keep yourself in the shoes of we, not I. That's what I'm thinking, but what rethinking. Let's get everyone's thoughts and feelings on the table and solutions so we can choose the best one and move forward together. Another great thing to work at this yourself is to keep a journal. Observe yourself in conversations, practice, then make a note when you come back and see the trends. I recorded a great video this week interviewing one of our conversational intelligence coaches about the value of journaling, the brain science, and how she helps uses journaling to make many leaders more effective, including women leaders. She does a great women's program in the US. Get a feedback buddy. We'll actually share that interview with you in the new year as part of our coaching webinar series. Also get a feedback buddy, someone you trust to watch you. Share the blind spot you're at risk of using a lot and ask them to observe you in the moment and give you feedback in a safe environment afterwards. We all need that. And if your organization, your managers, your leaders, your teams need help, come to us. Part of this webinar is to give you concrete insight and tips to walk away with to be effective today, but also to know that we're there for you to help you and your organization succeed. So that can be a variety of communication assessments to get concrete data and measure progress. We do over 50 assessments. These are just the communication ones. We do executive coaching one-on-one or for teams or group coaching. And of course, we do the soft skill development for leaders and managers, which might mean workshops, webinars, and learning journeys so that the positive change is sustainable. We fit that to your needs. So if you need us, do not hesitate to reach out. Here are some of our conversational intelligence and communication experts across the globe. They have expertise with executives, manager effectiveness, women leaders, including building the confidence and capability of women leaders, IT customer service, sales, and intact teams. So we talked a lot about the brain science. There's a lot more we can get into if and when you're ready. We talked about recognizing where we are in conversation and trust and collaboration. There are lots of tools we can help you with, and a variety of other tools to help you build trust, overcome the blind spots, improve your skills, and build a culture of collaboration and higher trust. Churchill is here for you. If you need more, we gift you 30-minute complimentary one-on-one Zoom with me to talk about your unique need. So if you're a leader, HR, and want to do more for your organization, please email us and we'll set that up. And our next webinar, again, I think we're going to do a series, Connie and I are working on this, is around coaching. What it is, how it can help you, the different types, why you need to do more of it, and how you can harness it to drive your 2020 strategic initiatives for success. So look more for our commercials and emails to join us in Q1 of next year. Any final questions in the chat? Connie, any final questions from our audience or thoughts you would like to share with the group before we close?
Well, I just want to say thank you. You've definitely opened up my mind and given me a lot to think about. And I know a little bit more about why you ask the things you ask in our conversations. So you definitely put all of this into practice.
Thank you, Connie. That's very kind of you. I'm still learning. Keep me on my toes, okay?
No problem.
Any other thoughts, questions, or comments from the group before we wrap? We are right on time. If you have afterthoughts, you know where I am. Thanks, everyone. Have a great December, start to the new year. Happy holidays, and we will see you in 2020. Take care. Bye-bye.